The calf stopped. Not because it wanted to, but because its legs finally failed. The storm had already erased the ground beneath them. Rain hammered the savanna, turning dust into mud, mud into suction. Each step the herd took forward pulled the calf deeper down. Its small feet slipped. Its body tilted. For a brief moment, it tried to trumpet, not loud, not a call for help, just a sound of confusion. The herd kept moving. Massive bodies passed it on both sides. Flanks brushed past. Tails disappeared into sheets of rain. The ground trembled as hundreds of kilograms pressed forward, away from the storm, away from the rising cold. The calf struggled to follow, pushing with everything it had left till it fell again. This time, it didn't get up right away. Ahead, the herd slowed. One adult turned its head slightly, just enough to look back. The calf lifted its trunk, stretching it forward, coating it in mud. The distance between them was no more than a few dozen meters. Then the herd moved on. The rain intensified. Night crept closer. Sounds began to change. The low-frequency calls of elephants fading, replaced by the sharper noises of the open savanna. Somewhere beyond the rain, something else was listening. The calf stood alone, too small to intimidate, too slow to catch up, too exposed to stay where it was. And the storm wasn't the real danger. Because when an elephant calf falls behind, the wild does not wait. Long before the storm reached the herd, the land had already begun to signal that something was wrong. The savanna had entered a period of imbalance, one of those transitional phases that do not announce themselves dramatically, but quietly rearrange the rules of survival. Rainfall kind unevenly. Patches of land that should have been green remained brittle and dry, while low-lying areas absorbed more water than they could release. The result was a terrain that looked stable from a distance, but betrayed weight and movement without warning. For elephants, these conditions mattered deeply. Elephants do not simply walk across land, they read it. Through pressure, vibration, scent, and memory, they evaluate ground long before committing their full mass to it. When conditions change faster than memory can adapt, even experienced herds are forced into compromise. This herd had already been compromising for weeks. It was a large group composed of several extended family units traveling together. At its center moved the youngest calves, protected by layers of adults whose bodies formed both physical and psychological shields. Leadership rested with two older matriarchs, females whose long lives had shaped not only their memories, but their authority. They were not reckless leaders. Their decisions were conservative, shaped by survival rather than urgency. But conservation itself had limits. With water sources becoming unreliable and storms beginning to collect in the distance, remaining stationary posed its own dangers. Disease, predators, and depletion followed stagnation as reliably as night followed day. Movement became necessary. The route chosen was familiar but not ideal. It crossed a wide basin that drained slowly and climbed gradually toward firmer ground beyond. In previous seasons, this basin had been manageable, muddy, but navigable. This time, the matriarchs hesitated longer than usual before committing. Low-frequency rumbles passed through the herd as they assessed conditions. These calls were not commands, but negotiations, internal recalibrations of risk. When the decision finally came, it was not unanimous, but it was accepted. The herd would move. At the center of the formation walked a young calf, born late in the previous wet season. It was not the smallest in the group, nor the weakest. Its body was still compact, its legs shorter and less efficient than those of the adults, but it had kept pace during shorter movements without issue. What it lacked was endurance. Endurance is not inherited fully formed. It is built slowly, over repeated journeys, through muscles that learn when to conserve energy and when to spend it. Calves learn this by proximity, by matching steps, by stopping when others stop, by resuming when others resume. Under normal conditions, the herd accommodates this learning. Under pressure, accommodation narrows. The first hours of movement were controlled. The herd advanced at a pace designed to maintain cohesion, adults adjusting stride lengths subtly to avoid stretching the formation. The calf remained close to its mother, occasionally nudged forward by the gentle pressure of a trunk or flank. Rain began lightly, then steadily. At first, it cooled overheated skin and suppressed dust. The ground absorbed it without protest, but as our option loosened, grass roots lost their grip. The basin revealed its weakness. Each step became slightly more expensive. The herd adjusted unconsciously. Adults redistributed weight more carefully, placing feet where others had stepped moments before. Paths emerged, only to dissolve again under continued rainfall. The calf noticed the change before it could articulate it. Its steps required more effort. Its feet sank deeper than expected. Small corrections became frequent. Each correction cost energy. Each loss of balance forced it to work harder to regain rhythm. Still, it kept up. The herd began to stretch. This did not happen abruptly. The front advanced with growing confidence as they reached marginally better footing. The rear, dealing with churned ground and waterlogged soil, lagged slightly. The distance between front and back lengthened by meters, then by tens of meters. The calf was now closer to the rear than before. Its mother remained near, but even she could not fully compensate for the calf's inefficiency without breaking stride herself. Breaking stride meant risking separation from the rest of the group, a risk adults avoid unless absolutely necessary. The rain intensified. Visibility dropped. Wind began to push water sideways, striking exposed skin and flattening grasses. Sound shifted as well. The steady rhythm of rainfall masked subtle noises, forcing greater reliance on proximity and sight. The matriarchs responded by increasing pace slightly. This was not panic, it was strategy. Movement through unstable terrain favors momentum. Slowing too much allows ground to deform further under weight, increasing the likelihood of slips and falls. The calf felt the change immediately. Its breathing quickened. Its trunk lifted more often not to cool, but to balance. It stumbled once, then recovered. Another stumble followed, then another. Each time, it regained footing, but recovery took longer. The herd did not stop. They slowed, briefly. A ripple of adjustment passed backward through the formation, but it was not enough to fully close the gap. The basin ahead sloped gently upward toward firmer ground, offering a chance to recover cohesion. Reaching it became the immediate goal. As the incline began, the calf struggled more noticeably. Ascending demanded sustained effort. Adults leaned into the slope, distributing force efficiently. The calf, lighter and less coordinated, had to push harder to achieve the same forward progress. Its pace faltered. For the first time, the calf fell more than a body length behind its mother. This was not yet dangerous, but it was new. The calf responded instinctively, pushing harder, lifting its trunk forward, ears flaring outward to regulate rising body heat. It closed some of the distance, then slipped again as a patch of loose mud collapsed under its front feet. It did not fall fully, but the stumble cost time. By the time it regained rhythm, the herd had crested the incline and begun descending into the basin beyond. From the calf's position, the adults ahead appeared slightly blurred by rain and mist, their outlines less distinct than before. The calf called. The sound was short and strained, not alarm, but acknowledgement. A signal of presence. A low-frequency rumble answered from ahead. The herd was still aware. Encouraged, the calf continued. But gravity worked against it now. Descending required control more than strength. The calf slipped repeatedly, sliding short distances before correcting. Each slide ended with a jolt that traveled up its legs and into its body. Fatigue accumulated. The herd, benefiting from improved drainage at the basin's edge, regained speed. Their strides lengthened. Formation tightened at the front. The calf could no longer match them. Its calls grew more frequent, each carrying less force than the last. Its trunk lifted and fell repeatedly, balance becoming a conscious effort rather than an automatic one. Ahead, the matriarchs sensed the imbalance. They slowed slightly, compressing the formation as the basin narrowed into a corridor of higher ground bordered by flooded depressions. This terrain favored cohesion. It also limited options for stopping or turning back. The calf was now dangerously close to the threshold where recovery would become uncertain, but it had not collapsed. Not yet. Every step it took in this moment mattered. Every meter lost compounded the next. The storm, the terrain, and the herd's momentum were aligning toward a single outcome. The calf continued forward, exhausted but uninjured, still moving, still trying. And the herd moved on, not yet abandoning but no longer able to wait forever. The corridor narrowed. What had once been an open basin, wide enough for the herd to adjust formation freely, began to compress into a long, shallow channel of higher ground. On both sides, water pooled in uneven depressions, forming a mosaic of flooded patches that reflected the gray sky above. The ground within the corridor remained marginally firmer, only just. Each step pressed water up from beneath the surface, reminding the herd how fragile their footing had become. For the adults, this change reinforced urgency. In constrained terrain, cohesion mattered more than ever. Predators favored edges and bottlenecks. Storms erased escape routes. Momentum became a form of protection not against attack, but against indecision. At the front, the matriarchs adjusted pace again. It was not a dramatic increase, only a subtle tightening of rhythm. Adults lengthened strides slightly, leaning into movement rather than correcting after each step. The herd's mass began to work for them, compacting mud beneath repeated footfalls. At the rear, the effect was the opposite. The calf felt the shift immediately. Its legs sank deeper into the churned ground, left behind by dozens of heavier bodies. Where adults benefited from compressed soil, the calf encountered loosened earth, disturbed by the passage of the herd. Each step required greater effort than the last, not because the calf was weaker, but because the ground no longer supported efficient movement. Its breathing grew faster, shallower. The calf lifted its trunk repeatedly, using it as a counterbalance, sometimes brushing it against the ground to steady itself. Its ears flared outward, releasing heat that built rapidly under constant exertion. The rain cooled its skin but did little to relieve fatigue. Still, it moved. Ahead, its mother remained visible, but the distance between them widened incrementally. Not enough to alarm, not yet but enough to demand constant effort to prevent further loss. The calf pushed harder. This response was instinctive, not strategic. Young elephants do not pace themselves in the same way adults do. They respond to separation by accelerating, even when acceleration increases exhaustion. The first slip came without warning. The calf's front foot slid sideways as it encountered a patch of ground that looked solid but collapsed under weight. The calf lurched, corrected, and continued forward without falling. But the correction cost energy, and the moment of imbalance cost distance. The herd did not slow. They could not afford to. The corridor ahead grew darker as clouds thickened overhead. Wind pushed rain at an angle now, stinging exposed skin and flattening grasses until they lay slick and heavy against the ground. Visibility dropped further. Shapes blurred at the edges. Sound changed again. The steady noise of rain masked subtle cues, forcing reliance on proximity and vibration. The calf felt the ground vibrate faintly ahead, a sign that the herd was still close, but the vibration weakened as distance increased. The calf called. The sound was higher in pitch than the low rumbles exchanged among adults, but it carried urgency, not panic, not distress. A signal of presence. A response came back, faint but unmistakable. The herd still acknowledged it. Encouraged, the calf continued, forcing its legs to maintain rhythm despite mounting fatigue. Each breath burned slightly more than the last. Muscles that had worked continuously for hours began to tremble. The corridor curved gently. As it did, the calf's line of sight shifted. The herd ahead became partially obscured by the rise of the ground and the flattening grasses. Their silhouettes appeared and disappeared between sheets of rain. The calf slowed. Not by choice, but by necessity. Its steps shortened. Recovery from each slip took longer. The distance to its mother increased again, this time by several body lengths. At the front, the matriarch sensed the imbalance. Low-frequency rumbles passed backward through the formation, not as reassurance, but as assessment. They slowed slightly, compressing the herd as the corridor narrowed further. This adjustment helped, but not enough. The calf was now close to a critical threshold. Elephant calves rely heavily on momentum when fatigued. As long as movement continues smoothly, muscles can borrow energy from rhythm. Once rhythm breaks, restarting becomes exponentially harder. The calf's rhythm was breaking. Another slip followed. This time, the calf's rear legs lost traction simultaneously. Its body dropped lower than before, chest brushing the ground as it scrambled to recover. It managed to regain footing without fully collapsing, but the effort drained what little reserve remained. Its breathing became audible even above the rain. The herd moved on. They were still visible, still within sight, but the gap widened enough that visual cues became unreliable. Rain distorted outlines, making distance hard to judge. The calf could no longer rely on sight alone to gauge progress. It lifted its trunk and called again. The response came back weaker this time, delayed by wind and rain. The herd was still aware, but their ability to adjust was diminishing. The corridor opened slightly, allowing the herd to regain speed. The matriarchs took advantage of it. They knew this ground. They knew what lay beyond: firmer soil, higher elevation, reduced risk. Lingering here increased exposure without improving the calf's chances significantly. This calculus was not emotional. It was survival-based. The calf felt the acceleration immediately. Its legs burned. Its stride shortened further. Each step felt heavier than the last. The calf stumbled again, correcting slower this time, barely keeping its feet beneath it. The gap widened decisively. For the first time, the calf fell far enough behind that its calls no longer received immediate response. Sound traveled, but precision was lost. The herd could hear something, but not clearly enough to locate it with certainty. The calf tried to push harder. It took several rapid steps in succession, attempting to close the distance through effort alone. This burst of speed backfired almost immediately. Its front legs slid forward as the ground gave way beneath them. Its body leaped, and this chimikud time. The calf collapsed. The fall was not violent. There was no sudden trauma. Its body simply gave out, legs folding beneath it as exhaustion overcame coordination. Its chest pressed into the mud, and for a moment, the calf lay still, sides heaving. Rain continued to fall. Mud pooled around its legs and belly. The ground beneath it shifted slightly as water filled the depressions left by its weight. The calf lifted its trunk weakly, drawing in shallow breaths. Its ears drooped outward, no longer flaring actively, conserving energy instead. Ahead, the herd slowed sharply. One adult at the rear turned its head, ears spread wide, posture alert. The adult did not turn fully back. Doing so would have required breaking formation, but it paused long enough to assess. The calf lifted its trunk again, higher this time, signaling awareness. The adult hesitated. Behind it, the herd compressed once more. The corridor ahead narrowed again, water deepening on both sides. Night approached rapidly now. Light dimmed, flattening contrast and erasing depth perception. The matriarch issued a low, firm call. It was decisive. The adult turned forward and rejoined the formation. The herd surged ahead as one, reclaiming momentum before conditions worsened further. From the ground, the calf watched. The silhouettes of the adults moved away, still visible through rain and mist. Still close enough to track but no longer responsive. The calf did not try to stand. It could not. Its legs twitched beneath its body, attempting to engage, but the effort failed. Exhaustion held it in place, not injury. Its trunk lifted and fell unevenly as it breathed. Rainwater streamed down its face, collecting briefly at the edges of its eyes before dripping away. The herd continued forward. They were still their dark shapes on the horizon, moving steadily toward safer ground. They had not vanished. They had simply crossed a line beyond which stopping no longer made sense. The environment around the calf changed again. Without the vibration of nearby footfalls, the ground felt softer, less stable. Wind struck its soaked body directly now, carrying cold deeper into its skin. The savanna felt suddenly vast. The calf remained collapsed. Its eyes stayed open, tracking movement ahead, registering shadows at the edge of vision. It lifted its trunk slightly, testing the air. Scent shifted. Wet grass, mud, and something else faint, unfamiliar, carried intermittently by the wind. The calf did not move. Movement required strength it no longer had. It remained where it had fallen, exhausted but uninjured, alone but still aware. The herd remained visible on the horizon. Night pressed closer, and the situation had narrowed to a single moment, one in which something would have to change. The calf lay where it had fallen. Rain continued to fall steadily, flattening the savanna into muted shades of gray and brown. Mud clung to its legs and belly, holding it in place more effectively than exhaustion alone. Its sides rose and fell unevenly as it drew shallow breaths, trunk lifting weakly, then settling again. Ahead, the herd was still visible. They were distant, now reduced to dark, indistinct silhouettes moving along the horizon but unmistakable. Their motion was steady, unified, directed toward higher ground where footing would improve and risk would lessen. They did not look back. Not because they chose not to, but because their movement no longer allowed for it. This was the moment the story had been moving toward. The storm had narrowed the world to essentials: ground, movement, distance, survival. Everything extraneous had been stripped away. The calf lay collapsed not because it was injured, but because the accumulation of effort had exceeded its capacity. Its body had simply reached a limit. The calf lifted its trunk again, higher this time, holding it aloft for several seconds as if testing the air. Its ears twitched, reacting to faint vibrations carried through wet ground. Something was moving. At first, the sound was indistinguishable from the rain. A soft disturbance in the background noise, easily dismissed. But the calf did not dismiss it. Its senses, sharpened by isolation, caught the irregularity immediately. The sound came again, closer, a subtle shift in the grass to its left. A low, controlled exhale that did not belong to the storm. The calf froze not consciously, but instinctively. Its breathing slowed. Its trunk remained lifted, motionless now, drawing scent rather than air. The scent confirmed what sound suggested: a predator. The calf did not panic. Elephant calves do not yet understand predators in abstract terms, but they recognize threat through pattern and proximity. This threat was close, too close for flight, too close for confusion. The calf remained collapsed. Movement was not an option. Its legs twitched beneath its body, attempting to respond to instinct, but the signal did not translate into action. Exhaustion held it firmly in place. The grass shifted again. This time, the movement was unmistakable. A shape emerged partially from the rainlow to the ground, powerful, deliberate. A lioness, her coat darkened by rain, muscles working beneath soaked fur as she tested the edge of the open ground. She did not rush. Predators that survive long enough to hunt elephants, especially calves, do so cautiously. They assess before committing. They watch for reaction. They calculate distance, wind, and escape routes. The lioness paused several meters away, eyes fixed on the calf. The calf lifted its trunk higher, ears spreading despite fatigue, attempting to make itself appear larger than it was. The gesture was automatic, inherited from generations of survival behavior. It did not deter the lioness. She stepped forward slowly, placing each paw carefully to avoid unnecessary noise. Rain masked her approach, dulling sound and scent alike. She circled slightly, seeking a better angle, watching for movement from the herd. There was none. The silhouettes on the horizon continued forward, unchanged. The lioness lowered her body closer to the ground. This was no longer a test. It was a commitment. The calf released a short, strained call, not loud enough to travel far, but sharp enough to cut through rain. It was not a call of distress so much as a reflexive signal of presence, a final attempt to reconnect with proximity that no longer existed. The sound carried farther than expected. It did not reach the herd, but it reached something else. From behind the calf, beyond the flattened grass and shallow pools, the ground vibrated faintly. Not the distant, fading vibration of the herd, but something closer, heavier, faster. The lioness froze. Her ears twitched. Her head turned slightly, reassessing. The calf, unaware of the shift, remained collapsed, trunk still lifted, eyes wide. The vibration intensified. A low-frequency rumble rolled through the ground, not subtle, not exploratory, but forceful. It was followed by the unmistakable sound of rapid movement through wet grass. The lioness snapped her head fully toward the sound. Out of the rain emerged a massive shape. He barfed him, he was a bull. Bull elephants do not move with herds. They travel independently or in loose associations, often trailing at a distance or moving along parallel routes. This bull had likely been following the same corridor, drawn by memory or opportunity, separated from the herd by timing rather than intent. He had heard the calf's call. Unlike the herd ahead, the bull was not constrained by formation or responsibility to multiple calves. His movement was not bound by collective risk calculation. He responded as solitary animals do directly. Charge. The bull burst through the grass with surprising speed, head high, ears spread wide, trunk raised. Mud flew beneath his feet as his mass compressed the ground with each stride. The rain seemed to recoil from him, unable to dull the force of his advance. The lioness reacted instantly. She turned and ran. Predators do not gamble against adult elephants unless desperation outweighs caution. The bull's size, speed, and aggression left no room for calculation. The lioness abandoned the approach without hesitation, disappearing back into the grass from which she had emerged. The bull did not stop immediately. He continued forward several meters, then slowed, scanning the area aggressively. His ears remained spread, posture dominant, trunk lifted to sample the air. He released a low, resonant rumble that vibrated through the ground. A signal meant not for communication, but for assertion. Only when the environment offered no further immediate threat did he turn his attention to the calf. The calf remained collapsed. Its trunk lowered slightly, then lifted again as the bull approached. The presence of another elephant altered the space around it immediately. The wind carried a familiar scent now. The ground vibrated with proximity rather than absence. The bull approached carefully. Despite his size, his movements were controlled. He circled the calf slowly, keeping his body between it and the direction the lioness had fled. His ears remained partially spread, posture protective rather than aggressive now. The calf attempted to respond. Its legs twitched again, stronger this time, encouraged by proximity. It lifted its trunk toward the bull, brushing it weakly against his leg as if confirming reality. The bull responded with a soft rumble. Not a command, not reassurance, simply presence. The bull stood over the calf for several moments, allowing it time. He did not rush the interaction. For exhausted animals, pressure can be counterproductive. The calf's breathing gradually steadied. Its trunk lowered and lifted again, more rhythmically now. Its ears, previously drooping, began to move again in small, involuntary adjustments. The bull nudged the calf gently with his trunk. The contact was light, almost tentative. He applied pressure, then withdrew, gauging response. The calf attempted to rise. Its legs folded beneath it at first, failing to find purchase in the mud. It did not panic. It tried again, slower this time, adjusting position incrementally. The bull adjusted as well, stepping closer, offering his body as a brace without pinning or crowding. On the third attempt, the calf managed to lift its chest off the ground. Its legs trembled but held. The bull rumbled again, low and steady. The calf paused, breathing hard, then pushed further. It rose unsteadily to its feet, swaying once before stabilizing against the bull's leg. It was standing. The bull remained close, allowing the calf to lean without falling. He positioned himself slightly behind and to the side, ready to intervene if the calf's strength failed again. Rain continued to fall. The herd ahead remained visible, still moving, but now the distance felt different. No longer a separation of abandonment but of trajectory. The bull assessed the direction of the herd. He did not attempt to rejoin them directly. Bull elephants are pragmatic. Catching up to a moving herd under these conditions would demand speed the calf could not sustain. Instead, the bull oriented toward higher ground slightly off the herd's path terrain that offered safety and time rather than reunion. He nudged the calf gently in that direction. The calf then followed. Their movement was slow, deliberate. The bull adjusted pace constantly, matching the calf's limits rather than imposing his own. Each step compacted the mud slightly more, creating marginally better footing with repetition. They moved together. Behind them, the grass settled. The lioness did not return. Predators rarely challenge a standing adult elephant, especially one displaying dominance. The calculus had shifted decisively. As they moved, the calf's coordination improved gradually, not dramatically but enough. Each step reinforced muscle memory and confidence. Exhaustion remained, but it no longer controlled the outcome. The bull guided the calf toward firmer ground. The storm began to ease slightly, not stopping, but losing some of its force. Wind softened. Rain fell more vertically. Visibility improved by degrees rather than leaps. They reached higher ground. The difference was immediate. The soil drained more efficiently. Grass stood upright again. The calf's footing improved, reducing the effort required to move. The bull slowed further, allowing the calf to rest without collapsing again. The crisis had passed. The calf was safe. The rain did not stop immediately. It softened. What had been a relentless sheet of water gradually loosened into a steadier, quieter fall, the kind that soaked rather than struck. Wind lost its edge, no longer driving rain sideways but letting it descend almost vertically. Pooling gently rather than churning the ground into chaos, the bull elephant stood still. He remained positioned slightly ahead of the calf, body angled outward, ears half spread, trunk lowered but ready. His posture was no longer aggressive, but it was alert. The environment had shifted from imminent danger to uncertainty, and uncertainty demanded patience. Behind him, the calf stood unsteadily. Its legs trembled from exhaustion. Joints locked stiffly as muscles struggled to remember their function after collapse. The calf leaned instinctively toward the bull, brushing its side lightly against his leg for balance. The contact was brief, tentative, but it carried meaning. The calf was no longer alone. The bull responded not by moving away, but by adjusting his stance, widening his base slightly to offer stability without crowding. He did not vocalize. There was no need. Proximity was communication enough. For several minutes, neither moved. This pause was not wasted time. For elephants, recovery after extreme exertion requires stillness as much as movement. Standing allowed blood to circulate properly, prevented muscles from locking further, and reduced the likelihood of another collapse. The calf's breathing slowed gradually. Each breath became deeper, less frantic. Its trunk lowered and lifted again in a more regular rhythm, no longer trembling with every movement. Its ears began to move in small, unconscious adjustments, responding to temperature and sound rather than panic. The storm receded further. Clouds remained thick, but the light stabilized into a dull, even gray rather than the dim, chaotic shifts of earlier. Visibility improved enough that the calf could see farther now, not just shapes, but contours. The herd was still there. Far on the horizon, barely discernible, the silhouettes of adult elephants continued to move toward higher ground. They were smaller now, more distant, but unmistakable. Their movement remained steady, unbroken. The calf watched them. There was no call, no attempt to signal. At this distance, calling would achieve nothing. The calf's attention lingered only briefly before shifting back to the bull beside it. The immediate world mattered more than the unreachable one. The bull assessed the surroundings again. He turned slowly in a wide arc, scanning the grass, the shallow pools, the uneven ground. His trunk lifted occasionally, testing the air for lingering threats. The scent of the lioness had faded, carried away by rain and wind. No predators remained nearby. Satisfied, the bull shifted his weight and took a single step forward. The calf responded instinctively, following half a step behind. Its movement was careful, deliberate. Each foot was placed slowly, testing the ground before committing weight. They moved together. The bull did not hurry. He matched the calf's pace exactly, shortening his own stride to accommodate the calf's limited range. This adjustment required constant attention. One misjudged step could force the calf into overextension and risk another collapse. Elephants are capable of remarkable behavioral flexibility when circumstances demand it. This was one such moment. They angled slightly away from the herd's path. Not dramatically, only enough to follow terrain that rose more gently and drained more effectively. The bull's choice was practical. Catching up to the herd directly would require speed and endurance the calf did not yet possess. Safety, not reunion, was the priority. As they climbed, the ground improved steadily. Mud gave way to firmer soil. Grass stood upright again, no longer slick and flattened. Water drained into shallow channels, rather than pooling unpredictably. With each step, the calf's confidence increased incrementally. Its gait smoothed. Its steps became more evenly spaced. The tremor in its legs diminished, replaced by controlled tension rather than instability. The bull remained close, occasionally brushing the calf lightly with his trunk not to guide direction, but to maintain awareness. These touches were brief and functional, never lingering. They reached a shallow ridge. From there, the savanna spread out more clearly, revealing patches of higher ground interspersed with darker, flooded areas below. The worst of the terrain lay behind them now. The bull stopped again. This time, the pause was intentional. The calf stood beside him, no longer leaning heavily, able to maintain balance on its own. Its trunk lifted and curled slightly inward, a sign of regained control rather than distress. Its ears flapped slowly, regulating body temperature now that exertion had decreased. The calf was stable. They remained on the ridge. As daylight faded into evening, night did not fall abruptly. It arrived gradually, softening edges rather than erasing them. The sky darkened into deep gray, but stars remained hidden behind lingering cloud cover. The air cooled, carrying the clean, damp scent of rain-soaked earth. The bull settled into a watchful stillness. He did not lie down. Bulls rarely rest fully when responsible for another animal, especially in unfamiliar terrain. Instead, he remained standing, weight shifting subtly as he maintained vigilance. The calf stayed close. At times, it shifted position slightly, adjusting stance, exploring the ground with its trunk. It no longer showed signs of panic or distress. Fatigue remained, but it was the manageable fatigue of recovery rather than crisis. Some distance away, the herd disappeared fully from view. Whether they continued forward or settled for the night could not be determined from this distance. What mattered was that their absence no longer defined the calf's fate. Time passed quietly. The rain slowed further, eventually reducing to a light drizzle. The savanna exhaled, releasing tension built over hours of storm and movement. Insects began to emerge tentatively, their sounds faint but noticeable. The calf shifted closer to the bull again, brushing against his leg lightly. This time, the contact was not for balance but reassurance. The bull responded with a low, almost inaudible rumble, felt more than heard. It was not a call meant to travel. It was a private acknowledgement. The night passed without incident. No predators approached. No new threats emerged. The ridge provided visibility and relative safety, and the bull's presence discouraged opportunistic challenges. By morning, the storm had fully passed. Clouds thinned, allowing pale light to filter through. The savanna looked different in daylight, washed clean, colors muted but clearer. The ground, though still damp, held firm beneath weight. The calf woke alert and responsive. Its movements were cautious at first, but coordinated. It tested its legs, shifting weight from one to another, confirming strength. Fatigue lingered, but the sharp edge of exhaustion had dulled. The bull moved again. This time, the direction was deliberate. He turned toward an area of known resources, higher ground with access to water that would remain stable after rainfall. Bulls carry extensive spatial memory, often rivaling that of matriarchs in certain regions. The calf followed. Their movement was slow but steady, no longer reactive, no longer driven by crisis, but purposeful. As the sun climbed higher, distant sounds carried farther. Somewhere beyond the ridge, low-frequency rumbles echoed faintly through the ground. The bull paused. The calf lifted its trunk, listening. The rumbles came again, stronger this time. The herd was nearby. Not immediately visible, but close enough to be heard clearly now that wind and rain no longer interfered. The sound carried direction and intent. The bull assessed, briefly. Reunion under controlled conditions was possible now. He angled toward the sound. As they moved, rumbles grew clearer, layered with individual variations. The calf responded instinctively, releasing a short call of its own, not strained, not urgent, but present. The response came back almost immediately. The herd had heard. Their silhouettes emerged gradually from behind a rise, closer than expected. Movement slowed as they recognized the calf and the accompanying bull. Formation loosened, no longer constrained by storm or terrain. The calf hesitated briefly, then moved forward. The bull accompanied it partway, then slowed, allowing the calf to close the remaining distance on its own. The calf walked steadily now, no longer stumbling, no longer collapsing. When it reached the herd, adults adjusted formation smoothly, opening space without chaos. The calf disappeared briefly into the mass of bodies. Shielded once more, the bull stopped. He did not join the herd. Bulls rarely do. He stood at a distance, watching as the herd reorganized, calves repositioned toward the center, movement resuming under calmer conditions. Satisfied, he turned away. His role was complete. The savanna returned to its broader rhythm. Storm passed. Crisis resolved. Movement continued. The calf survived not through force, or luck alone, but through timing, behavior, and the presence of another giant moving through the same land. And the wild, indifferent yet precise, moved on.